Here's a strange fact. The largest island on Earth is closer to New York than it is to Copenhagen. American military bases sit on it. American aircraft depend on it. And yet, the United States once tried to buy it and failed. Why? In 1946, Washington placed the modern equivalent of $100 million in gold on the table and asked Denmark a simple question. How much for Greenland? Denmark didn't negotiate. It said no. To understand why a small European country still owns one of the most strategic pieces of land on Earth, we'll have to go back to a time when Greenland wasn't valuable at all, when it was barely survivable, and when the people who first claimed it vanished completely. Greenland entered European history not through conquest, but through exile. In the late 10th century, Norse settlers fled Iceland, pushed west by feuds and land shortages. They weren't chasing empire. They were chasing survival. They built fragile farms along narrow coastal strips. Life was harsh. Trade was rare. Europe was months away by sea. Greenland belonged to Norway only because the people living there believed it did. And then, they disappeared. As the climate worsened, ships stopped arriving. Letters went unanswered. By the late medieval period, the Norse settlements were gone. Greenland was empty again. But something strange happened. The people vanished, the claim didn't. No rival power arrived. No treaty erased Greenland from royal titles. It remained on maps, owned by a kingdom that no longer had anyone there. Abandoned in reality, but not on paper. That accident would shape the next 1,000 years. When Norway later entered a dynastic union with Denmark, Greenland followed the crown without a single ship sailing west. Denmark inherited an island it barely remembered, cold, distant, and seemingly useless. And because it was useless, no one challenged it. That neglect became Greenland's greatest defense. In 1721, a Danish-Norwegian priest named Hans Egede sailed north, believing the Vikings were still alive. They weren't. What he found were ruins and Inuit communities living entirely outside Europe's past. Egede stayed anyway. He built a mission, raised a flag, kept records. And with that, Denmark turned a forgotten legal claim into a living one. Greenland had returned to history. The next test came far away, on Europe's battlefields. During the Napoleonic Wars, Denmark backed the wrong side. In 1814, it lost Norway, its most valuable possession. But in the treaty that punished Denmark, something odd happened. Denmark was allowed to keep Greenland. No one wanted it. So Denmark kept it. That line of fine print transformed Greenland from a medieval leftover into a legally recognized possession protected by international law. A century later, Norway tried to reclaim it. In 1931, Norwegian explorers raised a flag on Greenland's eastern coast and declared it Norwegian land without firing a shot. Denmark didn't send soldiers. It went to court. In 1933, the world's highest international court ruled in Denmark's favor. Greenland was one island, under one authority. The challenge ended peacefully. Then came World War II. In 1940, Denmark was occupied by Germany. It could no longer defend or even reach Greenland. Under almost any historical rule, that should have ended Danish ownership. Instead, the United States stepped in not to take Greenland, but to defend it for Denmark. Bases were built, airfields carved into ice. Weather stations fed the Allied war effort. Denmark had lost control, but not recognition. And recognition mattered more. After the war, Washington made its move. In 1946, the United States offered to buy Greenland outright. Denmark refused. Selling Greenland would have ended a 1,000-year chain of continuity. Instead, Denmark integrated Greenland into the state. Greenlanders gained citizenship, representation, and growing self-rule. American bases stayed by agreement, not ownership. That is why Greenland still isn't for sale. Across a millennium, Greenland survived not because Denmark was strong, but because it stayed when others left, used law instead of force, and never rushed to cash in its claim. History gave Greenland many chances to change hands. Each time, it didn't. So here's the question worth thinking about. In a world where power shifts constantly, is ownership really about strength or about who remains when everyone else walks away?